Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of Live with NORML. I'm J.M. Padini, the Development Director for the National Organization for the Reform of Marijuana Laws. It's Friday, September 1st, 2023. It's been a big week, friends, in cannabis and cannabis news, and we're going to get into it. I can't wait to answer your burning questions live, so I hope you brought some good ones. Go ahead and take a minute. You are already beating me to the punch. Hey, take a second and drop a note in the comments. Tell us where you're watching from. Like Kevin. Hey, Kevin, who's watching from Gloucester, Virginia. Hey, Stephanie, good to see you here. Hey, Doug, asking about Pennsylvania. Doug, I don't have any news for you about Pennsylvania today, but I am going to take a peek for you, Doug, while we keep saying hello to some of our friends. Hey, Doug, there are, looks like 12 bills still pending in Pennsylvania. If you go to the NORML website and go to our Take Action Center, you're going to find that at norml.org/act. You can click on Pennsylvania. You can see all 12 of those bills, and you can very quickly click and send an email to your legislator in support of the legislation. Hi, Sherry. Happy Friday to you, friend. Hey, Christopher. Good to see you here. Hello, Caroline. Happy Friday. Hello, South Carolina NORML. So good to see you all here. So good, so good. Hey, Jeff, hope you're enjoying September as well. It's only been one day. No jinxing. Hey, John in Rich Creek, Virginia. Hello, Dara in South Carolina. Hello, MJ in Manassas. Michael in Utah. Michael, I hope you're connected with Truce out in Utah. My friend Christine is doing great work there. Ellie, good to see you, friend. Hey, Paul. Hey, buddy. Hey, Jason in Minneapolis. Rob in Texas. There's so many of you here today. Hey, Michael in West Palm. We'll be headed sort of down that way at the end of the year. More specifically to Key West. I see, Doug. I see. Hey, Carrie in North Carolina. Hello, Jennifer in Pennsylvania. Jasmine in Richmond. What? Just like me. I love it. I love it. Where are you? Are you so close to me? All right, Steve. Steve, let's just get right into it, because Steve went ahead and brought up what's arguably the biggest thing we have to talk about this week. And that, of course, is the leaked HHS letter that calls upon the DEA to reschedule cannabis. So in short, Steve, no. It's a letter that was part of the requested review by President Biden. So President Biden, you all recall, this is incredibly historic. President Biden said, hey, I don't think marijuana should be a Schedule I drug on par with heroin. So that in and of itself, the president of the United States recognizing this was, was huge, was historic. It was not enough for everyone. I get it, but still, by our measurements, it was really huge. And like that announcement, this is also huge in that it is essentially a recognition by the federal government that there is medical utility for cannabis. Because in this letter, HHS is purportedly recommending that marijuana be reclassified from Schedule I with heroin to Schedule III with drugs like ketamine, anabolic steroids, and Tylenol with codeine. I don't think America, we don't think America agrees that marijuana ought to be federally classified as a Schedule III drug. Nonetheless, that's the recommendation that is in this letter to the DEA. Now, before anyone gets too excited about this, I got a couple things for you. So first of all, I pasted a link to NORML's press release on this issue. And it also includes now the video clip of NORML's Deputy Director Paul Armentano yesterday live on CNN talking about this exact issue. Now, I'm gonna read you some things that Paul wrote, and I hope it helps. Look, it's going to be very interesting to see how the DEA responds to this recommendation, given the agency's historic opposition to any potential change in cannabis's categorization under federal law. Further, for decades, the agency has utilized its own 5-factor criteria for assessing cannabis's placement in the CSA, criteria that as recently as 2016, the agency claimed that cannabis has failed to meet. This isn't the first time a review has been requested, and not the first time in recent years either. So in 2016, the agency claimed that cannabis failed to meet these 5 criteria, and since the DEA has final say over any rescheduling decision, it's safe to say this process is far from over. So that's really the million-dollar question. What is the DEA going to do? I think if you read NORML's response in this blog post, you'll see kind of where we're at for the moment, which is this was nice. This was a nice gesture. But ultimately, it's up to DEA, and DEA thus far has done nothing. So that's kind of where we're at on that. Catch back up with your comments here. Thanks, Jeff. Hope that answered it for you. Hey, Ted. Hi, Todd. Todd asks, greetings from Michigan. Hello, greetings to you in Michigan. When are you going to get your rights back? Your Second Amendment rights? Listen. It's been a minute since we've had to read the guns and weed statement, but you know what, Todd? I have it for you, and I'm going to read it. It was fun while we didn't read it for like a week, maybe 2 weeks. Listen, the consensus at NORML is that the conclusion reached by the ATF and the justices for the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals is based on a broad interpretation of a 1968 law, a federal law, that forbids the sale of firearms to those considered to be an unlawful user of or addicted to a controlled substance. But at this point in time, no state is engaged in the sharing of data related to state-sanctioned activities of medical cannabis patients. So unless a person responds yes to the question regarding their cannabis use on the NICS background check, federal government has no real way to enforce this outdated law. Furthermore, Todd, since the passage of Rohrabacher-Farr Amendment, which has had many names since then, the Department of Justice cannot use federal funds, not one single federal dollar, to prosecute medical cannabis patients who are engaged in state-sanctioned activities. So that's what I can tell you about that. Tennessee will get there eventually, Paula. It's gonna get there. It's gonna get there, just not quickly. Hey, Valerie in Wisconsin. Hey, Willie in New Jersey. Hey, Dr. Smedel. That's how I decided to say your name. Maybe it's DRS Metal. Maybe that makes more sense. But hi in Florida. Kathleen, why the baby steps? Listen, that's how public policy works. Hey, Alan, happy Friday to you. Paula, I'm so glad you followed NORML from its beginning. We are, math is hard, 53 this year, 53. NORML was founded in 1970. Oh, goodness. The TA is not. Okay. Thanks, John, for that heads up. Yeah, we're not going into that one right there. No, thank you. Here we go. Look, this is what's up right here. So, DRS Metal says essentially it's up to Congress to make this decision, but with Republican-controlled chambers, it makes it incredibly hard to pass legislation in a divided government. Federal government is a perfect example of that. So are plenty of your state legislatures as well. But you're right. It is absolutely incumbent upon Congress to pass legislation that removes marijuana from the Federal Controlled Substances Act and allows states to set their own policies, as they already are, but without threat of federal interference. You know, largely symbolic and very thoughtful of President Biden to initiate this review, but I don't think there's anyone who takes this seriously who believes that the DEA is going to follow through with a rescheduling or descheduling. I think, John, that since you bring up 280E, there is hope within the industry that if marijuana were federally reclassified to Schedule 3, then they would be able to take tax deductions, and that's exciting. But reclassifying cannabis federally from Schedule 1 to Schedule 3 would not do anything to end the conflict between state and federal law. So all of the states that are not in compliance with federal law because they have laws in place today that make marijuana use for medical or adult purposes legal, that conflict would still exist if marijuana were Schedule 3. Hey, Jeff. I love this question. All right, Jeff is asking about Ohio. And Jeff, we actually have some info on that for you on our homepage. Hopefully, I'm going to try terribly to click through and get to it for you here, so I can drop it in the chat. Here it comes, Jeff. Okay. Yes, Jeff, we can absolutely bring cannabis freedom to the Buckeye State this November. It absolutely can be done when Ohio voters go to the polls this November and to decide on a ballot measure legalizing the possession, personal cultivation, and retail sale of cannabis to adults 21 and older. If enacted, Ohio would be the 24th state to legalize adult use and would be the 14th state to do so by public vote. Can it win? Absolutely. Recent polling indicates that nearly 6 in 10 Ohioans back adult use legalization. Will it win? That remains to be seen. Look, marijuana is not going to vote to legalize itself, Jeff, so that means we need to get out the vote. I encourage you to take a look at the blog I just shared. It has plenty of ways you can get connected to the campaign. You can find more on our website as well. So I think the state will turn around and override it. No, I don't think. I don't. I'm not currently of that opinion. um, I don't. Um, yes. So there's a comment here regarding picketing the DEA. DEA doesn't care if you stand outside and protest. It's not going to get them to change their stance. There is, however, a way that you can be impactful, and that's by voting. Um, if we continue to elect people who don't support the changes that we'd like to see in cannabis policy, then we aren't going to get them. Fortunately, we have a voter guide, so you can check that out at vote.normal.org before you head to the polls to see where the candidates stand on cannabis policy, if that's your thing. And I suspect it is, since you're here right now. Mike, I agree. We do need to stand up and fight back, and that voting is the number one way to do that. Hey, ma'ams. That's what it says. Okay, so Mams says, speaking of DEA in Virginia, the Cannabis Control Authority website is showing a new board member. Correct. He's from the DEA. Do I think this will change the trajectory of the CCA's mission? I do not. I do not believe it will change the trajectory of CCA's mission, because that's not driven by the board of directors. It is dictated through legislation. So it might, you may see it influence some of their messaging, but their messaging is, I will politely say, fairly conservative at the moment, given the political realities of Virginia. That's how I'm going to say that. You're welcome, Paul. Thank you for being here. When will this actually happen? Oh, who knows? Hey, George in West Virginia. Good to see you back. Hey, B, I like this question. B says, do we see a faster path to descheduling from Schedule 3 to off the CSA altogether, or from Schedule 1 to off the CSC? Would rescheduling bog things down in paperwork? Yeah, it wouldn't. It would. Yes. So if cannabis were to become Schedule 3, which again is a pretty tall order, you know what the FDA doesn't do? Regulate plants. I'm not certain why we think FDA is going to start regulating plants. Let's just say they do. Then that would mean that cannabis could only be available by prescription in the United States. So all of the existing medical cannabis programs would not be in compliance with federal law, and all the adult use programs would not be in compliance with federal law. So if that were the way it went, and there, you'll say you have a company, medical cannabis company, and you think you have the capital to weather that sea change and to become compliant with whatever FDA hands down, you might think this is great. You're going to get a tax deduction, and a lot of other businesses are going to go under. So good for you. But Schedule 1 to Schedule 3 doesn't fix the underlying issues. Doesn't do anything for consumers either. And most importantly, it's not what Americans want or believe. Americans believe marijuana should be removed from the Federal Controlled Substances Act, like alcohol. So again, I'm going to say, vote. If you keep electing people who don't see eye to eye with you on this issue, you're not going to get there anytime fast. Hey, raindrops. Hey, Paul. Paul says, "Do I think craft cannabis licensing opportunities will be more available in the emerging markets?" In emerging markets, generally, that depends on the state, Paul. And I know you've witnessed firsthand how in some states that's simply not the case. When we see more when we see southern, more conservative states roll out their regulatory models, typically for medical use, they are generally hyper restrictive models, kind of what we would think about as antiquated models, or they have limited licensing opportunities. Again, friends, I tell you, elections have consequences. I think, Paul, more states are, time goes on, right? And people get more emotionally comfortable and they make better choices. And I think we're certainly seeing that when it comes to creating economic opportunity for regular people in cannabis. And hopefully that'll continue to be the case around the country. Hey, Wade, what did you miss? I don't know. I don't know where we were 10 minutes ago, my dude, but welcome. Oh, that's really offensive, so I'm gonna delete your comment. Suck it. Yeah. Carry or build install in North Carolina, huh? What the hell is that? Hey, Jason. Jason asks, when cannabis is rescheduled or removed from the controlled substances list, what should it be rescheduled to? It shouldn't. Shouldn't be. We are not of the opinion that it should be scheduled. Alcohol is not scheduled. Cannabis shouldn't be scheduled either. Um, that's what we believe. I've seen this proposal of Schedule 6, whatever. I think it's kind of a self-serving initiative from industry, but NORML, just like Americans, does not believe that marijuana ought to be scheduled. MJ, I haven't. I mean, I did see Matt Gates's comments a few weeks back. I think he said something again recently. I haven't watched them yet, though. We've been a little busy, and bless his heart, Matt Gates is not real high up on my list of commentary I need to hear on a daily basis. But is he receptive to the idea of rescheduling? Probably. I think most people are receptive to it, but I don't think most people understand that it doesn't do what they think it does. It's political posturing and it's industry tire pumping. It's probably not a popular thing for a lot of folks to hear, but it's what it is. Oh, good, Wade. I'm glad I caught up with you. Yeah, yes, Becca. I think that you might be right. Oh, hold on. We have to just block that person. That just got out of hand. Weird. Weird. Okay, so yes, Michael. Exactly, Michael. We would be looking for declassification, descheduling versus rescheduling. Wow, what a clown. Oof. I did not see that Ted Cruz tweet, but thank you. Oh, someone was angry today. Hello, lovely in North Carolina. Valerie, what's happening in Wisconsin? Look, I think Wisconsin is really feeling what happens when You have a General Assembly, you have a legislature that just doesn't want to move the issue. But you have some pretty good candidates coming up, Valerie, as I'm sure you know. So, yeah. Oh my God. Wow. Woof. Hey, Michael. What did you miss? Thanks for joining us at 4:20, Michael. You missed everything. Hey, Folly, good to see you. Oh, Todd. Todd says, lobbying your Congress critters. Congress critters. Almost choked on my water. Congress critters needs to be constant. And you're right, Todd, it does. I'm going to put this up here because, look, we make it so easy for you. And I'm so glad you said this, Todd. You can visit the NORML Take Action Center every day, multiple times a day. We have action alerts there for you. It makes it so easy to click and send an email to your elected officials, whether they be federal or state elected officials. Yeah, absolutely. If you are not talking to your electeds about this issue, then how do they know that it's important to you? And I'm just going to put this up there because DRS Metal said that, and I'm going to let you read that comment while I read the rest of yours. Folly asked if it would be better. Folly, I may have said this six minutes ago. You asked this question, and maybe in the last 6 minutes I haven't said it. But Folly asked if it would be better to take Schedule 3 as a step forward, or is it better to reject it? I mean, it's better from an industry perspective, right? There's some folks in the industry who would love for it to be Schedule 3. And those are companies that could arguably afford to comport with FDA regulations. But it wouldn't end the conflict between state and federal cannabis laws. States that today regulate medical or adult use are in conflict with federal law, and they would continue to be in conflict with federal law as well, unless they completely dismantled their programs and then comported with whatever FDA regulation were potentially to come. Yes. Yes, Valerie, right? Plants and veggies are definitely scheduled for harvest. Yeah. Hello, KB in Canada. Thank you, Jason. I'm glad to hear this, Jason. Thank you. Jason has agreed to join us in our call for descheduling. Oh, thank you, MJ, for explaining that. Yeah, DRS, I mean, scheduling, if cannabis were rescheduled to Schedule 3, then it would open the door for other companies too. Companies who have, to date, not been part of the cannabis industry would then arguably have opportunity to enter it. Is that something we're going to see one day? Absolutely, right? We should all be so fortunate as to one day have the luxury of choosing between, craft cannabis at the boutique dispensary, Marlboro Greens at the big box store, and pharmaceuticalized cannabinoids at CVS. In some states, you basically have those choices already. We're not going to solve the way capitalism or commodification works in the United States with cannabis policy. It's just weed laws, man. It's going to be like everything else. We're just kind of in a weird spot right now. Hey, Adam. Oh, hello, Adam John Bird in the UK. Thank you for joining us. Happy Labor Day weekend to you as well, George. Yeah, good job, Valerie. Exactly, Daryl. Daryl knows what's up. It's all about the descheduling. Hey, AJ. Paul, thank you for your very thoughtful question. Paul asks, is there a way to remove the conflict between state and federal cannabis laws? What does that process look like? Well, Paul, there is a way, and that's called removing marijuana from the Federal Controlled Substances Act, thus allowing states to continue setting their own marijuana policies without threat of federal interference. So the threat of federal interference right now is largely set aside by a budget rider that's been enacted every single year since the initial passage of the Werbacher-Farr Amendment. And that's what prevents DOJ from spending any money to go after individuals or businesses engaged in state-sanctioned medical cannabis activity. We've tried many years in a row now to just remove that one tiny word medical and have this expanded to all state-regulated cannabis, but that doesn't fly in the Senate right now. So is there a way to remove that conflict? Yes, it's to remove marijuana from the Federal Controlled Substances Code. And what does that process look like? It doesn't look like the exercise in which the administration is currently engaged. What it looks like is Congress passing a bill. Right now, is it reasonable to assume that some smaller bill would get passed first? Sure, a bill like safe banking, right? Get your feet wet, kids, dip your toe in the pool, get emotionally comfortable with the marijuanas, sure, whatever you need. But it's a bill that makes its way through Congress that the president signs that removes marijuana from the Federal Controlled Substances Act. The president's not going to certainly have the authority to remove, to deschedule marijuana through executive order. That's a popular theory that we hear. No, that's not how it's going to happen. It's not really reasonable to expect the DEA to do anything differently than they've done in recent years. Call us jaded if you want. We've been around for 53 years. But yeah, it's electing people who will move this issue. So that's your responsibility, America. And then it's holding them responsible once they take office. A nice clean bill, like we've seen before, like we saw a few years back, the Ending Federal Marijuana Prohibition Act, that'd be great. It's easy, simple. Don't gotta weigh it down with a bunch of stuff. Yeah, okay, look, I love that people are psyched about research. Marijuana is one of the most studied substances on the planet. If that's not our opinion, you can go to PubMed right now, our nation's repository for peer-reviewed studies. You can go look with your own eyes and see tens of thousands of studies on cannabis and its constituents. And then people go, oh, yes. Oh, but let me explain to you, tiny organization that does nothing but cannabis policy. It's not the kind of studies that people want. They want the gold standard. They want the double-blind, placebo-controlled studies. Yeah, there's over 100 of those. How many your average drug goes through before it goes to market? FDA-approved medications? Less than 2. So sure, more studies would be super neato. I think we're full up. I think we've hit that magic threshold, that magical imaginary threshold, whichever one you want, whether it's just studies in general or if it's gold standard. Internet is your friend. It's free. Valerie, that would be huge. Also, hello, Marcy. Good to see you here. Yeah, allowing veterans the ability to use cannabis without being in conflict with federal law would be extraordinary, wouldn't it? Oh, Douglas. Douglas says, I don't understand why it's on the controlled substances list. Feelings. Feelings, Douglas. Feelings. So there was a recommendation, it's called the Schaefer Report, during the Nixon administration to remove marijuana from the Federal Controlled Substances Act. And he decided that even though he'd commissioned that report, Nixon decided that he was going to ignore that and instead make sure we put lots of people in jail for weed. That way we can pretend like we ended slavery, but have a new tool for slavery. Right, John? John says not being discriminated against at the doctor's office would be nice and we need to deschedule. Agreed. Oh, research. You're hilarious, Jason. All right, friends. You know what I should have said like an hour ago or 40 minutes ago? Hey, could you hit that like, follow, or subscribe button wherever you're watching? Go ahead, I'll wait. That way you never miss when NORML goes live, because we do it every week, or we try to. Sometimes we go on vacation, but not really. Okay, let me tell you about some things that are coming up this month and next month and the month after that, because why not? On September 6th, Texas NORML will be doing their monthly live stream. Oh, wait, I have to do this myself now. Forgot. Yeah. Here we go. Here's the information for the Texas NORML September live stream coming up September 6th at 8 p.m. on Facebook. It probably streams somewhere else too, because I know they also use StreamYard. Later in the month of September, Virginia NORML will be at Virginia Pride Fest. So come out and see me there. This will be on Browns Island, as usual, September 23rd from 12 to 7 p.m. It's free, and we'll have cool swag. Now, let's fast forward to October. Personally, one of my favorite months. Ink Sanity Tattoo in Leesburg, Virginia, is hosting a fundraiser for us October 7th from 12 to 7 p.m. Oops, I got to press send. There you go. There's the information for the Ink Sanity Tattoo fundraiser. They're going to have specially priced cannabis flash. So come out. I'll be there, not getting a tattoo, but watching you get one. And then, Todd, I'm glad you were able to join us. Thank you so much. And then my all-time favorite annual events is the NORML Key West Legal Seminar. It's right there in the name. It's in Key West. This is November 3rd through December 2nd. It's at the Pier House Resort and Spa. You can register at norml.org/Key West. If you're an attorney, we have continuing legal education credits approved in every state that requires CLEs. If you're not an attorney, it's still an excellent way to learn about cannabis law and connect with legal experts as we move our way from prohibition to cannabis freedom. Right, we talked about no other news because really, what other news is there? Hey, Scott, thank you for sharing that. I wish I could copy it. It won't let me copy this. It won't let me copy this. Send me that. Send me that, Scott. Join the South Carolina Cannabis Conversation every Wednesday at 7 p.m. Eastern on YouTube for South Carolina NORML. Email me that language and I will put that in our events block. You know what I mean. Thank you, Scott. That's right, Marcy. That's what I was talking about that income for those private jails and for the corporations that use incarcerated labor. And then instead of, paying people a living wage, you can just pay them 10 cents an hour because they're in prison. That's slavery. Marcy, I hope you're going to come up and get a tattoo at Insanity. You can do it? All right, some other things happened this week, and, no one's going to pay attention to them. But I'm going to drop them in here for you real quick, just so you can see them. And listen, if you want these stories in your inbox, I would love for you to have them. You can just go to norml.org/subscribe and put in your info and then get them every Thursday. And if you check the weekend weed read box, and I don't know why you wouldn't, then you'll get the digest every Saturday morning. Come up there, Marcy. Do it. Okay, so here's 4 other quick stories. I'm going to go through them real quick. There's a study, news articles, that's what I meant. But one is actually a study. There was a study that just came out. And again, these are not new results, but it's nice to hear them again. Herbal cannabis does, in fact, provide sustained pain relief to those people who have neuropathy, who have neuropathic pain, that's nerve pain. This study demonstrated that there was relief provided, sustained relief by herbal cannabis to patients with neuropathic pain. It helped them with sleep and with pain levels. What's up next? Clinical, yeah, exactly, Valerie. Clinical trial. Oh, let's talk more about how we need those studies. We don't have any studies, yet here's a clinical trial I'm about to tell you about. This is a clinical trial that was done on adding oral liquid CBD to an existing protocol. So patients were having 2 types of treatment at the same time. One of them was this oral CBD, and it was very well tolerated, and it did provide statistically significant improvements for patients with focal dystonia. You can read more about that there. Hey, Steve in Michigan. Thanks for joining us. Glad to have you here. All right. Now what do I have for you here? Now I have for you another story. Oh, Marcy, look at that. Marcy says, I have severe neuropathy, and topicals and tinctures have definitely helped her pain. Great. Good to know, Marcy. Good to know. Thank you for sharing that with us. And I'm so glad that you live in a state where you have access. Okay, here's a recent survey in which researchers reported that the majority of the patients who receive medical cannabis to treat their neurological disorders, so things like epilepsy and Parkinson's disease, 58% of those patients surveyed in this reported a decrease in their symptoms, including things like better energy and vitality, improvement in sleeping and appetite after receiving medical cannabis. Also, patients who reported a longer period of receiving medical cannabis reported statistically significant more energy and vitality, but also better mental health and general health status. So no surprises, I'm sure. Folks are just having so many things to say about these stories that I don't think are really that exciting this week. But look, we have Jason, who says that cannabis works for dystonia and neuro pain. So glad to hear that, Jason. All right, and last but not least, I am going to share this with you, and please do not take this as license to make bad choices. I'm going to tell you this story, but then I'm going to also tell you to make good choices, all right? You're going to see why in a minute. So there was a study done. using a driving simulator. People weren't driving on the road. It was a simulator. But this study did reveal that CBD-rich cannabis did not negatively impact performance in this simulated driving experiment. Despite their lack of impairment, though, subjects still tested positive for trace amounts of THC. And in a real world application, this potentially puts them at risk could put them at risk for violating certain traffic safety laws. So number one, don't drive high. It's stupid and irresponsible. Full stop. Second, don't make good choices, right? Don't drive high. And also, you might live in a state that has a per se law. So just make good choices. Really? Can we just do that? That'd be cool. That's where we're at, friends. This has been delightful. It is almost 5 o'clock. It is definitely time for all of us to enjoy what I hope for you is a long holiday weekend. Yeah, Marcy, have to get that right balance of cannabinoids there. Yikes, Valerie, that's terrifying. Yes, and Jason, I'm glad you brought that up. NHTSA's own studies are pretty clear that the crash risk, the potential for increased crash risk is statistically negligible for cannabis once there has been accounting for other factors, like being male, like being young, like having someone else in the car with you, things like that. Oh, hello, Jeffrey. I was having a happy weekend to you too, Ellie. Jeffrey, I want to read your comment. Jeffrey says, my apartment complex has it written into the lease specifically that people can't have cannabis, in sharp contrast with the legislative guidelines of California. Do I think NORML would be able or interested to address that issue on mine and our tenants' behalf of the company that owns the property? I would love, Jeffrey, for you to shoot us an email at legal@norml.org, and we can take a look at, of course, the information that you provide and potentially connect you with a member of the NORML legal committee in your state who may be able to provide more support. Yeah, let's take a look at that. Exactly, Doug. Don't do any of that stuff. I'm sorry, Douglas. Excuse me. All right, friends. Thank you, David. You have a great weekend as well. Hey, this has been great. I always enjoy hanging out with you all, and I love your questions. We try to do this show every week. So if you hit that like, follow, or subscribe button, then you'll never know. You'll never miss. You'll never know. I hope you'll know. You'll never miss when we go live. Hey, this has been a blast. I hope you enjoy the long weekend. As always, it's been a pleasure. Thanks so much for watching, and I hope to see you back here next time. Bye-bye.